Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are almost at the tail end of a month that we've dedicated to this theme of global leaders and sponsored by Viasat. But today we have with us Declan Sweeney. He is the executive director of the Aerial Evolution Association of Canada. And he's coming to us live from Canada today. And we are so excited to have you with us here today, Declan.
Thanks, Dawn. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So many great things coming out of Canada. And I know your organization has been such a huge part of rallying what you call the RPOS, the remotely piloted aircraft system community, and all of those stakeholders. So really excited to dive into what AEAC has been doing. But before we do, what I want to make sure is that everybody knows a little bit about you to provide a little context. So Declan, tell us about yourself.
Well, Dawn, you're going to age me here. I started in the commercial drone sector over 2 decades ago as a founding director and COO of Universal Wing Geophysics Corporation in 2001. So I've been in this game for a long, long time. That originally started with an idea, working from the mining exploration industry, looking at ways that we could remove a pilot from low-level aerial surveys so that we can reduce the pilot risk to zero. So we got some backing, we got a financier and a geologist leading it, and then I basically helped put the company together. And we got our first prototype, I think around 2005, and our proof of concept completed at that time. I guess we didn't know what we didn't know in terms of regulations, flying, all our pieces that we had to put together. There was a lot of MacGyvering going on. Was coming from the kind of the military side of things, where we would try and make everything work together. But the goal was basically to take the pilot out, reduce the risk for mining companies. Once we did our proof of concept, we were bought by a public company, an oil and gas public company in Austin Developments. And I worked my way up to CEO of that public company, where we shifted 100% to drone development at that point, which happened to be in 2008, just as the financial crisis hit. So that put us in a really tough position where, trying to raise capital in quite a risky area because it was so new to everybody. Eventually, we had to sell those assets out back into the private domain because that's where the funding capital was available. I basically moved from there back into the private sector, and I founded Unmanned Solutions, which is a consulting firm specializing in helping companies develop their own drone technology for commercial applications. So basically building on all the challenges and successes we had coming up to that part. I did a number of pilot projects for the utility sector as a contracted project manager with EPRI, which you'd be familiar with in the US, and the National Research Council in Canada. And basically that was evolved around bringing lots of different companies together so that the utilities could look at what technology was available and what spoke to them, what they could use, not having a clue about what drone technology was. So we did that for over 2 to 3 years to do that. And then following that, I started Drone Fair. That was about 2016, running events across the country to educate the general public about the benefits of commercial drone technology, because at that point it was still very much, the word drone was bad. You couldn't use that. So using unmanned systems or unmanned technology, but I wanted to really gain kind of the public interest in terms of, no, we can use this technology for good. So from 2016 on, I've been volunteering with Unmanned Systems Canada, which is now Aerial Evolution Canada, since about 2008. Lots of different leadership roles, strategic, regulatory committees, vice chair of strategy. The one thing I really enjoyed was putting together civil commercial workshops as part of the conferences, where I would bring the end user community and the drone community together to look at what the challenges were specific to those applications, to get everybody talking on the same page. You know how it is. Somebody says, well, I've got a drone I can fly, I'm a pilot. And then you go to the oil and gas industry and they say, well, what about safety? What about this? What about that? You know,
Right.
it doesn't just transition in. There's got to be a meeting of the minds, and
For
it's
sure.
best to work together on that, you know. So 2016, I received a Pip Rudkin Individual Achievement Award for my contributions up to that point to the industry, and I've been serving as the executive director since 2020.
Wow. What a journey. And 2001, I mean, I call you a pioneer because, I mean, except for the military, I'm going to go out on a limb and say not too many people were thinking about drone technology. And, you know, you picked one of the more complex use cases to start. You know, mining, I've covered
Yes.
mining for Inside Unmanned Systems magazine. I mean, some of that inside, of course, in tunnels and shafts, it's all GPS denied environments. You know, outside, you've got these pits and whatnot, open
Yes.
pits, and then environmental concerns. I mean, wow, to cut your teeth, if you will, in the drone world, creating technology specifically for that highly kind of complex set of uses is amazing. And then this evolution, I love that along the way you realized, hey, we're not going to go anywhere as an industry unless we get public acceptance, and dedicating time to that, which you're still doing today. So that's a great transition into Aerial Evolution Association of Canada, which, by the way, everybody, is a nonprofit. And just a reminder, we are live. So I know we've got super fans out there. We've got others. We got lots of people watching globally. So jump in the chat, say hello, ask your questions, tell us where you're from. This is a great opportunity to learn what's happening up in Canada through AEAC and its executive director. So tell us about AEAC. It's a nonprofit, but kind of at its core, what is it all about?
Again, as you said, it's a federally registered not-for-profit association. So basically, our mandate is to represent the interests of the Canadian remotely piloted and unmanned vehicle system community. And we're talking about businesses, industry, academia, researchers, and to connect them up with government and other interested organizations in Canada and abroad. I mean, we do that in a number of ways, mostly as a business catalyst, working to develop, support, and accelerate growth opportunities for our members, creating new business prospects and collaborations. That's a big part of it. And as an industry bridge, I mean, I already talked about earlier, bringing the industry and the drone community together, bridging the gaps between the sectors to foster that innovation and growth. So that's our main mission and mandate, is really just to empower the commercial drone technology innovation and integration from coast to coast across Canada.
Awesome. And I know there's a number of ways you do that. We're going to dive into each of those. But when did AEAC actually begin? What year did that start?
Originally founded in 2003, so over 20 years ago.
Wow.
It was originally Unmanned Vehicle Systems Canada, UVS Canada. And that was a group of entrepreneurs, mostly coming from the military side of drones, who saw the potential for this technology in the commercial sector, to do those dull, dirty, dangerous applications, which we've all heard, those buzzwords in years past,
Yeah.
where the manned aviation risks were substantially higher in specific areas. Mining, we brought up already. It evolved to Unmanned Systems Canada in 2009 and was rebranded during COVID to Aerial Evolution Association of Canada in 2021. And that was really to better reflect the association's commitment to diversity and focus on the commercial drones sector specifically. So,
well, I love the name Aerial Evolution because there is absolutely, I mean, people would say a revolution happening, but absolutely an evolution, not just in drone technology, but in advanced air mobility, you know, electric vertical takeoff and landing, short takeoff and landing, you know, you name the acronym, they're out there, hundreds of designs. And every day, you know, it's like, Declan, you're in this world as much as I am. It's funny because when you talk to the public, I still think there's a really big educational piece of this that needs to happen because, you know, I was just in Steamboat Springs and, you know, went to some happy hour, got to talking to another couple and what do you do? And I explained, and then you start talking about some of these aircraft and they never heard of it.
That's right.
Yeah, they're like, what do you mean air taxi? Well, oh, so it can take off from maybe from a roof. And it's so funny because we all think, oh, everybody knows about it. They really don't. We do.
Yes.
And so anyway, everybody, we just dropped a link to a great video. It's 4 minutes long, so check it out. It's about the evolution of AEAC and this name change. A lot of the different leaders from the organization are featured in the video. So when you have time, go ahead and absolutely check that out. We'll also put it in the comments on YouTube so you can see that later as well. So lots of issues in this community, Declan. I mean, you mentioned this 2009 kind of financial crisis. I mean, I think as you look around right now, their budgets are tight. VC money isn't flowing the way it was. People are looking for a real, return on investment. What are the biggest problems right now that AEAC is trying to solve?
For our members, I mean, the as you know, technology moves so fast. The
Yeah.
regulations definitely don't, and so when you're putting together regulations that is a kind of a catch-all, you miss certain things. What you thought might be the biggest application. I think we were working on drafting regulations in 2010 with CARAC, and we had all the stakeholders around, from manned aviation to unions to everybody else, a helicopter association, a lot of safety concerns. And their thing was, well, it's only about real estate photography. That was their thing.
And you're like, we started in mine.
So drafting regulations based on an application was their approach, and that was the lack of education. But their big part was obviously safety. So when we come to what we're trying to solve, public awareness is a huge part.
Yeah.
But their technology is moving so fast, and there's so many different applications and sectors where you can fit drones in to improve your processes, gather data. Data is your number one thing. It's just a tool at the end of the day. How do you use that data? From a bird's eye view, what added value can that bring to your corporation, to allow you to innovate with technology to improve your bottom line and expand, your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And advocacy and education are two big components of that. Now, for your members in particular, you provide a number of benefits. Can you kind of walk us through what some of those are?
Oh, well, I think the number one benefit, having our members have direct input to helping shape the commercial drone sector here in Canada. To their participation in the association, we've got specific working groups and committees. We're in direct contact with the regulators. So some stuff that they may not have thought about when they're drafting regulations, we kind of bring that to the forefront. And again, with standards development, again, having industry have some say in that going forward so that it's not done in the vacuum. So that's probably the biggest one. Also, having events and speaking opportunities to educate others in what they're doing. So obviously we have the largest national drone industry conference. Our members get advance notice of pilot projects, which are really important, research partnerships and new funding opportunities. As you said, you talked about advanced air mobility and the move for government to go to sustainable aviation, maybe on the electric side. Well, there's money there, but you've got to be in the know of when these project funds are coming out and have a seat at that table. So that's what we provide to our members, and then on advancing that further, obviously when the government are putting together, trade missions, either to Canada or outside of Canada, having advance notice to participate in that as well, so that you can expand globally. That's another key element of something we bring to our membership.
Yeah, all of that is critical. And, on top of that, you provide networking opportunities. I mean, you mentioned some events, this, global exhibitions, educational opportunities. What are you providing? So there's live events, obviously, and there's online content. Can you kind of walk us through some of the online opportunities that folks have?
The majority of stuff is obviously online meetings, webinars, where we want to meet companies or members that are having challenges. How can we create better opportunities for the companies that are here specific to Canada. So obviously our geography, is very large. Our infrastructure, it's not everywhere. Our, communication links are not everywhere, and our weather. So we have some unique, let's say, challenges that we have to kind of work through. And again, we're always dealing with regulators. We're always dealing with, other uh, parts of the government that want to have their voice in terms of where the drone space is going to move. For example, like agricultural spraying. So you'd have Health Canada in there, PMRA. So we have a lot of individuals saying, how is that going to affect what we do traditionally right now? What do we need to be aware of? So bringing all parties together, as I said, through meetings, not so much, we do webinars, but at the same time, that's more educational. Where I see the value is networking events where we bring people together in working groups and stuff like that to address challenges ahead of new regulations being put in place where companies will have to adapt to. And so we don't want them being surprised. Be a part of, shaping what's going to come down the pipe so that you're aware of it and so you can adapt and prosper within that environment.
Well, I think that's so important, honestly, for businesses looking to expand because, where do you start? You can't just pick up normally. You just can't pick up the phone and call a regulator, or in
No.
this case with healthcare, have access to those people to have those discussions. And I think that's really key. So obviously based in Canada, focused on Canadian business, expanding it globally. Let's talk about the flip side of that. I'm a U.S. company. I want to do business in Canada, and because look, Declan, we both know. I think you've been in this industry long enough, longer than probably most people watching this, frankly,
Yes.
to know that better together, right? Like
Yes.
this industry is only going to move forward when it's the hardware company, the AI company, the analytics company, the sensor company, the agricultural group, if we're doing precision ag, if everybody's working like as a group, or there's end-to-end holistic solutions. Some of those solutions may come from outside of Canada. How do I tap in as someone from the United States, or someone from Brazil, if they want to be a part of your community and ecosystem?
Oh, the first part is connecting with us directly. Let us know what you want to do, and who you need to talk to, and then we make that happen. So we're basically a facilitator for a lot of companies internationally. For example, we just had our student competition, which we're going to talk about later, but wind turbine inspection company from the US came up to look at, well, we're thinking of expanding. We need to be able to find, employees. Maybe this is a good place to start. Looking at our university students in the next couple of years, they're going to be graduating, and they wanted to see kind of what the talent level is here. So they started with that, and now they're going to expand into, okay, how can we connect them with other potential partners, or collaborators, or even depending on where they want to go, provincially or regionally, where are they thinking? And then we are able to connect them up with funding partners and stuff like that to allow them just to look at expanding, globally into Canada. Different challenges, but at least we're giving them that first step in. They're not going in blind and trying to learn everything from a Canadian perspective. We've been doing it for a long, long time, and so we're there to help.
Well, and what a creative way to foster not only workforce development, but also these employment opportunities on both ends, the
That's right.
students themselves and the employers. So flexibility, as they say, is the key to air power. At least that's what they say in the United States Air Force, where I come from. So I want to jump to this competition because you mentioned it, and this was your 2024 AEAC student competition. Tell us a little bit about what this is, and how did it go this year? 15th
Uh,
annual, by the way, everybody. You can see it
15,
on the back.
yeah. This is one of my favorite things that we do. You get to be a mentor. You get to see the latest brains coming out with so many different unique ideas, where technology already is moving so fast, and now you've got, I'm going to call them the kids only because of my age, but just seeing those teams come together and having them work as a team in a high high stress environment. Um, and giving them a theme, but saying, okay, this is what you're going to do. Phase one, you're going to make a proposal as if this is your new business. So we're already creating that, incubator environment.
Right.
This is what you need to be thinking about, using what you've learned, over the last number of years, and then applying that to industry. Where are you going to fit in? So these teams, I mean, some of the teams are up to 50 students, although they can only send 10 to the flying phase, this phase two. But basically, they have to sell us on the idea of their design, what they're trying to achieve. And so they get to talk to us from a business perspective, and we get to critique them and kind of help them along and kind of mentor them in terms of, you're talking to us now, it's a safe spot. But when you go into industry and you're sitting down in front of a VC or somebody else, you need to be able to talk their language. And so
Right.
there's a big part of that. So as I said, there's two phases. One is the proposal phase where we judge that. And then the second phase is the demonstration phase.
Okay.
And so, and it's
And
all based on a theme.
so this one was Urban Air Mobility Challenge. I mean, talk about, hey, let's tackle this. I mean, we got NASA, at least in the US, right? We got NASA, the FAA, like working on this. We only have like concepts of operations. We don't have
Yeah,
any regulations in this arena,
that's
really.
right.
And you're just like, hey, over to you guys. So how did the teams do? Who was the winner? What did they actually present?
Well, so they had to, it was a miniature prototype. So they had 6 Barbies that they had to transfer from one landing spot to the next to take off. And then we had specific areas where they had challenging environments to which to take off and land. And it all had to be autonomous. So they're not flying by stick at all. All they can do is take off and land, when it comes back. But everything's got to be autonomous, and the drone has got to do everything itself. So a lot
And
of
Barbie
computer
was the
vision.
passenger.
Yeah, they would just put the Barbies in, take it out onto the runway, and then that was it. QR code. This is what you're going to do. And
Wow.
so 14 teams, 140 students competing at that stage. Big winner this year was University of Waterloo, the aerial robotics group. They took phase one and phase two. I mean, they were so put together, so professional. But we have a number of awards as well that we pass out. We have the Pip Rudkin Memorial Award for Perseverance. So teams show up and they're crashing, and they don't stop. They go, we have to learn something from this. And that was the
Yeah.
University of Guelph, Griffin Aerospace. The Innovation Award winner this year was Carleton University, Team Blackbird. The Judges' Choice Award, again, University of Waterloo, as I said, they just killed it. The hardest tasks, they just nailed everything. And Team Spirit Award, again, they're having fun. I mean, they're very stressed, a lot of Red Bull going on, a lot of late nights, but they are having fun at the end of the day. And so, where we see teams helping one another and actually making connections across the country through universities, that they're making long-term friends in the same industry. They'll probably collaborate 5 or 6 years down the road. But again, we have a Team Spirit Award, and UBC Okanagan Air Robotics and Rocketry Club really lifted everybody. They
No
didn't
pun
have a great
intended.
competition themselves, but they were there to assist and cheer on each of the other competitors, and it was really great to see. So we as I said, one of my favorite parts is watching the kids all grow together and build relationships at this stage, which will definitely work to their advantage going forward in the next 3 to 4 years.
Well, and connecting them with industry too, that
Yeah,
example you gave of that group that came in looking very specifically for workforce talent, for their company. I think that's one of the hardest things, these folks, they go to college, they get their degree, and it's just like, now what? I actually just had a phone call with a young man. I'm not going to mention names or anything, but just double major, I think, Mechie and Aero, and he reached out to me because we had a mutual connection, and he's like, I haven't been able to get a job. I'm working, installing, security cameras for a company that I worked for just to make money, and
yeah.
so it's just like double engineering majors, like, where are these jobs? Like, how do you make that connection? So I love what you're doing. I think it's so hugely important. And so my question is, do you connect some of these folks? Am I going to see this really cool Waterloo, or I think the team's acronym is WARG, W-A-R-G. I love that. Is the WARG prototype going to be at your event in Ottawa? So this is a great transition. Let's talk about your event. So you guys do a very big annual event, the Aerial Evolution Canada, and you've got one coming up. So let's talk about when and where first, and then we'll get into more details.
Well, it's the 2024 conference and exhibition is the Delta Hotels by Marriott in the Ottawa City Centre. And it runs from November 5th to Friday, November 8th.
All right. And this is a picture of last year's team that helped lead that event as well. Right. All right. I recognize some of these characters. I see Jordan Sikoria from Arium Analytics in the front there with the brown blazer, and I got Michael Cohen in the back from Key AI, friends of this show, and Dan Julin all the way, the tall guy in the back with the glasses and the stash, and you're in there, of course. So awesome! That is a great picture. All right, so tell us a little bit about what to expect at your conference, because I think a lot of us in the industry, we go to a number of conferences. There's usually educational content, exhibition floor. Sometimes a STEM zone, like what do you have going? What are some of the key activities?
Again, I'll go back to, as I said earlier, because let's say Canada being a big country, but our population as compared to the US is an awful lot smaller, let's say 10%. So everybody knows everybody. This is what you're going to find when you're up here in November. So our main thing here is to build relationships. So we will have, obviously, you're going to have presentations, you're going to have, training, workshops, educational sessions, research sessions. But the big part is you actually get to meet the regulators and the industry leaders and the CEOs and your next business partner. It's a very close community in terms of especially the networking and building those face-to-face relationships where you can actually just pick up the phone. Like, I know most people can't pick up the phone to the FAA and say, I'm having this difficulty. I mean, you can't do it. But here, what we're trying to do is bring all the stakeholders together to have that one-on-one and to have that personal relationship so that they can actually pick up the phone to them and say, I'm having this issue. And if it's unique, well, then they have to deal with it a certain way. If it's something that's going to help raise the whole industry from our perspective, we'll do it as a group.
Yes.
So that's a big part. I mean, I love the networking sessions. I just think that's that's the key part that kind of drives this and makes it unique compared to other, exhibitions and conferences around the world. It's smaller, but it is very intimate.
Small but mighty. I find lately, Declan, I'll go to these events, I'll walk the floor, and that's primarily what I do, going booth to booth, talking to people, seeing their technology or solutions, kind of getting to know them a little bit. And by the time happy hour rolls around, I'm like done. I'm just like, the last thing I need right now is a beer, but but it's still so fun, and just always value. What I love also that you've done is you've got really unique communities in Canada, and you've made a concerted effort to include them and to highlight them. So we're going to roll a couple pictures here. Here we go. You've got your Indigenous community. So very large Indigenous community in Canada, very much so early adopters of drone technology in some respects. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here, this panel, and kind of what your goal is with the Indigenous community.
I think we set up the Indigenous community probably 2.5 years ago because that was a gap. And again, I'm all about that, where we see a gap in the industry that could benefit from, integration with other communities, other minds, other brains, other, opportunities and applications. We want to bring that in to our group, basically. So this was the first year that we had the Indigenous Innovators, panel. And everybody was talking about, okay, we're not like your regular community. We're very remote. Weather is a huge issue, and our culture is quite a bit different. So we don't want to be sold to. When you become part of our community, you become part of our family. And there's a whole different way that you have to approach that from a business perspective. It's not business as usual. It's not, where's your website, all that kind of stuff. Find out who's the decision maker, get in contact with them. Where's the win-win? It's quite a bit different. So that was a big part of bringing the Indigenous community to the conference, to let them tell their story, so that we can connect up companies that want to look at that opportunity, but do it in a very respectful way.
Well, and I'll tell you, we had Jacob Taylor from Indigenous Aerospace on the show. I'm going to say it was last year. And he was with the Canadian Advanced Air Mobility, CAM, right? Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a joint show. And to hear what they're both doing individually in this space it was very inspirational. I think that last year we had a month dedicated to diversity on the show, and Volatus Aerospace endowed their appearance, another Canadian company
Yeah.
with a global presence.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to meet Jacob and learn like you said, the unique challenges, because when you talk about the landscape out there, you mentioned weather, some of the locations where these folks live, a lot of water, very remote, hard to get supplies to, very
That's right.
expensive, dangerous, just perfect 3D, dull, dirty, dangerous scenario to
Yes.
utilize drones. And Jacob's doing amazing things. I hope I get to see him in person
You
at your event. And by the way, everybody, if you haven't figured out, I'm going to this thing. I'm super excited. I'm going to be giving a keynote on day one. So I'm really excited to be involved this year. And you also have made a deliberate effort to highlight women in this community. In fact, I think one of the chairs of this year's event is Erica. She is a lawyer and a woman, obviously, from the Field Law Firm in Canada. And here's a great picture. So tell us a little about what we're seeing here.
Again, this is something that we put together, oh my God, maybe 5, 6 years ago, and this is looking at underrepresented groups within the drone community and say, okay, how can we remove barriers to entry? Great leaders, great minds, different perspective in a lot of cases. How can we kind of use that to create a sustainable drone kind of focus going forward? Let's get everybody on the same page. And my God, that took off like you wouldn't believe. Trying to get into that breakfast is near next to impossible. It's like not included. Out you go. And their big thing is mentoring the next level, or the next entry of females into the drone industry, to help and support them in their endeavors, and to have that person at the end of the phone just to say, are you having challenges? We've already gone through that. Don't make this mistake. This is who you should talk to. Again, such a very close-knit community as well, and very well represented on all panels, workshops, and you've met an awful lot of them already. They're top of their field. Amazing people. Amazing people.
Yeah, I love what you said too, incorporated in other panels, because I've been to events where, no offense, Declan, it's the dudes panel,
Like me.
panel after panel,
Yeah.
and then they have some women diversity panel that no one stays around to listen to, or it's the women listening to it. It's just like, no, 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 no. It's you got to kind of demonstrate through the panel complexity or composition, what the industry should look like.
Yes.
And so I think that's, and I've had conversations with people too. Oftentimes I'll get asked, like, and maybe because I do podcasts or I write a lot of articles, right? But people don't sometimes realize I had 28 years in the United States Air Force as an attorney, and I actually know stuff. Like, hey, will you moderate that? It's like, I'm actually a substantive expert too. And so, when people ask me, like, what do we do? I say, like, put women on the panel, like, not just as moderator, like they can herd cats, but like, let's showcase women and other groups as actual experts. And I love that. So let's talk about the theme for this year's conference. It's a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at, what what's the biggest thing that governments are looking at? They're looking at sustainability. They're looking at, what can they do to help promote, industry engagement and growth. And so, our theme this year is sustainable growth in industry and technology. So that encompasses an awful lot. There's so many parts to that. Um, Sustainability is global. Everybody is saying, okay, how can we reduce emissions? So what do we need to be start looking at? From traditional manned aviation, is there some part of drones integration that we can do to start looking at that from our perspective?
Right.
So looking at that and technology integration, allowing companies to become more cost effective, if you will, and increase profits or expand. That's really what we're pushing this year: sustainable growth in industry and technology.
Well, sustainability is key. All you have to do is look around, and this summer has been another one. The world is literally on fire. I'm in Colorado. I don't know if you know that, but we actually have smoke coming from fires in Canada across the Rocky Mountains. It's like a haze over the
Yeah.
whole city of Colorado Springs right now. And, it's something that has become sadly commonplace.
Yes.
And, the more emissions we have, the more greenhouse gases. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but uh, definitely sustainability to ensure our future is going to be critical. And not only these vehicles, in many respects green, and we can debate that, right? There's battery issues with where those where those uh, the the different components of that coming from, etc. But at the end of the day, it's just gets super important. And not only that, but all of the issues around sustainability, for example, wildland firefighting, which I know is huge for you
Yes.
in Canada as well as it is for us. Drones are increasingly playing a role there as well. So it's so much to talk about. Like you said, it's a rich theme, many directions to take that. But definitely the future of this planet and all of our futures, I think, hinge on this. Let's throw up that QR code so everybody can take a second and get a little bit more information about the conference. You can register. Again, it's November 5th to 8th. Now, November 5th is a Tuesday. That's kind of registration 4 to 7. Really kicks off in earnest on the 6th. And my keynote will be that morning. So really excited to participate. As I said, we'll be doing a full crew live also from this conference. So check that out. We'll be streaming that on the 7th, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And if you guys follow me, which I think many of you do, if you don't, you should. You'll get more information about that. Sign up for my newsletter, by the way. Like, you'll get all this information in your inbox every Tuesday. So, all right, I knew our time would fly, Declan, and we have, let's say roughly 7 minutes left. And I want to take some of that time to talk about law and policy, since that's kind of my thing, but it's also obviously the industry's thing. We have the FAA Drone and AAM Symposium coming up next week. Super excited about going there. I think everybody's going to be very eager to hear where are we going with beyond visual line of sight. What are the next steps in UTM, UAS traffic management?
Yeah.
What about urban air mobility? So these are, like, I'd say, let's just call them the big three. At least in my brain as I go into this event, where you talked about advocacy being part of your mission. How goes it up there? Are these some of the conversations we can expect to also hear from the Canadian perspective up at your event?
Absolutely. I think Canada is more like a test bed because of our geography. A lot of areas with not huge populations. So a great test bed to try out stuff. So we have our first low risk BVLOS regulations coming out next April 2025.
Oh, wow.
So you're going to be able to see, the challenges. You're going to be able to learn from our experience. You're going to be able to look at, okay, where are the bigger challenges? AAM's obviously going to be in there, but we're looking at, because we have these wide expanses of very low populated areas, looking at doing long range pipeline inspection, power line inspection, looking at coastal areas, long range drone delivery, that kind of stuff. You're going to actually see what actually the challenges and solutions could be. And I think with us being one of the first to have this as drafted regulations and coming into force in April, is that you're going to see opportunities where US companies can partner up and learn, by having a Canadian partner. You're going to be able to go through like test it and see, because you learn way more in the field than you do on the blackboard or the whiteboard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So seeing that real world experience, and again, this is across the board. So everybody who meets the regulatory standard will be able to fly. No special permissions, no, SFOCs as ours, where yours is the like exemptions,
Right.
where there's a lot of work goes into an exemption,
Yeah.
where this will be across the board. You meet these standards, with these regulations, you can fly. You don't have to tell anybody, you can just fly. So that makes the barriers to entry and testing and research an awful lot easier. And that's April 2025. It's not that far away.
No, it really isn't. It'll be right actually before exponential. So I'm going to peg you maybe for my Law Tech Connect workshop. We're going to have Global Drone Regulations Part 2 to hear how that goes. That could be
Yes,
a really great opportunity. We'll talk offline, but
sure.
that's amazing. So for the companies that are out there listening, and by the way, I failed to mention Fire Mech Tech Rob, one of our super fans, was out there. He gave us a big thumbs up. We love Rob. Met him on Clubhouse, by the way, a couple years ago. So who, if you had, an opportunity, which you do now, I guess, to kind of tell folks like, come on down, what kinds of companies, stakeholders, people are you looking for to come to Canada, to work there, to come to your event, to learn about the aerial evolution and revolution happening in the Great White North?
Well, I mean, every company that is looking to expand internationally, Canada is very close. Great regulatory environment, work well with the stakeholders, NAV Canada. Everybody is working together to kind of push Canada to the forefront of the commercial drone sector. So you're going to meet an awful lot of companies that, are in a position to kind of to not just test, but show what they can do. And it's an easy partnership to have. The Canadian government is very open to that, with our trade commissioners and everybody else. There's a lot of help, and a lot of expertise here too. As I said, so any company looking at, beyond visual line of sight is the way we're going to go regardless. Visual line
Yeah.
of sight can do so much, and that market is still expanding. But beyond visual line of sight is kind of like where it needs to go. Um, Come and join us and kind of test it for real. Don't just, don't be restricted by the regulatory environment, in the USA right now. Look to come a little bit further north, and collaborate with us.
By the way, Dan Julin is in the chat. So, hey, Dan, great to have you out there. Dan says the prime example is the IART initiative. Air Market uses Census Tech Centauro for BVLOS flights right now because the rules are more friendly. So we love Census Technologies. They're out of Florida. Their Centauro is a really cool fixed wing drone. So that's good stuff and a great example. So for everybody out there, if you're looking to do some real world operations on the beyond visual line of sight, arena, it sounds like come on up in November to Ottawa to this conference, start meeting people, start making those connections so that sow the seeds so that in 2025, when those rules hit in April, you're ready to fly. I think that's a great opportunity. And by the way, Mark is from our Nevada test site. He's saying good morning, another super fan. And, So great, doing great stuff there as well in Reno with Mark. So, all right, we've got 1 minute left. So I want to cede the floor to you, Declan, for any concluding remarks. And please, 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 just a reminder, tell everybody how they can reach you and learn more about Aerial Evolution Association of Canada.
Well, obviously through our website, aerialevolution.ca, or connecting with me directly, Declan at aerialevolution.ca. I'm sure we're going to be able to put that up somewhere. Best way to reach me, again, this is a people business at the end of the day. I'm here to chat and point you in the right direction and connect you up with who you need to talk to.
Awesome. Well, it was great to learn about everything you're doing and what you will continue to do. I'm really looking forward, as I said, to meeting the Canadian family up there, reuniting with some of my Canadian brothers and sisters that I've met and worked with in the past as well in November. And until then, reach out to Declan, check out their website, and certainly register for this event. So great to have you, Declan. Thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for joining us today. Global leaders, he's here for a reason. We are out here.